The moment I accidentally met the father who left before I was born. Morning in the office always felt the same, soft, fluorescent buzzing in the ceiling, the faint smell of copier toner lingering in the air, and the steady rhythm of my fingers tapping across the keyboard as I logged into the scheduling system. It was early, the kind of quiet early where the building felt hollow, like it was still stretching awake. I liked that calm. It made the day feel manageable before the patients and phone calls and paperwork started stacking up. I took a slow sip of coffee, the steam unfurling upward in tiny spirals, and scrolled through the list of appointments for the day. The names passed by in a blur, familiar regulars, new ones I'd never seen before, the typical mix of sinus infections, routine checkups, follow-ups. Nothing unusual, nothing worth a second glance, and then my eyes stopped. A name sat in the middle of the screen, bold and unmistakable. My pulse skipped once, then again, harder the second time, his name. I didn't say it, didn't even whisper it, but it echoed loud inside me. There was a cold, tightening feeling in my stomach, the kind that happens when reality brushes too close to something you've spent your whole life keeping at arm's length. For a moment I genuinely thought maybe I typed it there by accident, like my brain had hit some glitch and put his name into my work system. That idea lasted maybe half a second before the truth hit me fully and sharply. It was him, scheduled for 9:30 in the building, today. I leaned back in my chair slowly, the wheels sliding just a little across the tiled floor. The room felt different, too still, like the air itself paused with me. I stared at the name again, as if it could vanish if I blinked. It didn't. Memories didn't flood in, because there were no memories of him to flood. Only stories told in short sentences and quiet tones. A divorce before I was born, a man who signed his rights away without meeting me, a few photos, grainy, distant, almost like he was a stranger caught in someone else's family picture, and now he was scheduled for an appointment 2 doors down. A strange calm came over me, the kind that only shows up when emotions are too tangled to name. My fingers hovered over the mouse, frozen. I tried to steady my breathing, but my heart wasn't cooperating. It thudded like it was trying to get out. It doesn't mean I'll see him, I told myself. People move through these halls all day long and never cross paths. He'd check in next door, see his doctor, leave. I'd go on with my shift, file my paperwork, answer calls, pretend my entire world hadn't just tilted slightly sideways. Still, I couldn't stop looking at the clock at the door, at the name glowing from the screen. The morning hummed on around me, but inside, something had already shifted. By the time 9:30 crept closer, the calm of the morning had dissolved into a tight, restless energy. I kept pretending to focus on the small tasks in front of me, printing forms, sorting files, clicking through emails I barely read, but my ears were tuned to every sound in the hallway, every footstep, every door opening, every shifting voice. The office had filled in around me the way it always did. A couple of nurses talking in low murmurs behind the closed triage door, the faint ringing of a phone somewhere down the hall, the printer groaning to life every few minutes. Routine noises, familiar, but they all felt distant, muted behind the rushing pulse in my ears. I told myself not to look at the clock again, but I did. Of course I did. 9:31. I swallowed hard and sat up straighter, almost bracing myself even though I knew. The chances of him walking into my office instead of the one next door were slim. I tried to picture what he might even look like now. The photos I had seen were all old, faded snapshots of a younger man with dark hair and a tired smile. I wondered if he'd changed, if I'd recognize him, if he'd look anything like me, and then the door opened. It wasn't dramatic or loud, just the usual metallic click and a soft whoosh as the office air shifted, but my chest tightened instantly, like my ribs were trying to hold back a flood. I knew it was him before I fully looked up. It wasn't logic, it wasn't observation, it was something deeper, an instinct, a sudden internal certainty, the way your body recognizes a storm before you see the clouds. He stepped inside, walking straight toward the counter where I sat. For a moment everything sharpened, the sound of his footsteps on the linoleum, the faint smell of cold air coming in from the hall, the way he carried himself, like someone used to being tired but still moving forward. When he stopped in front of me, my breath hitched. "I have an appointment with Dr. X," he said. His voice stunned me more than seeing him did. It wasn't dramatic or emotional, it was just normal, a stranger's tone. Polite, straightforward, but something in it hit deep, tapping into a part of me I didn't know had been waiting to hear it. I felt my hand tighten subtly on the edge of the desk, grounding myself. I forced my voice out, trying to keep it steady even though my heart was thudding like it was afraid he'd hear it. "Doctor, X is in the office next door," I managed. He nodded, not noticing anything unusual, not the way my voice caught, not the wave of emotion crashing behind my composed exterior. To him, I was just another staff member doing my job. "Thanks," he said simply, and then he turned, walked out, and the door closed behind him. The moment he left, I let out a slow, shaky breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The room felt suddenly too small, too bright, too loud. My hands trembled under the desk. It was the first time I had ever seen him in my entire life, and he didn't know who I was. For a long time after he walked out of my office, I just sat there, staring at the doorway like it might pull him back in. Everything in me felt overstimulated and numb at the same time. I kept replaying his voice, that simple thanks, over and over, as if I could extract something deeper from it: recognition, hesitation, anything, but there was nothing. Just the casual politeness you'd give to a stranger you'd never see again. Eventually, my shift pulled me back into motion. Papers needed to be sorted, faxes needed delivering, phones needed answering, normal work, safe work, work that didn't require me to confront 30 years of silence. A stack of faxes printed out beside me, warm to the touch. The nurse asked if I could drop them off at the neighboring office, the one he was in. My stomach tightened. I hesitated for a split second too long before saying, "Yeah, I'll take them." The hallway felt impossibly long as I walked, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My footsteps echoed too loudly. Every sound seemed exaggerated. My breathing, the shuffle of papers in my hand, even the soft squeak of my shoes. I tried to tell myself he wouldn't still be there. Maybe his visit was quick. Maybe he was already gone. Maybe this whole morning had been nothing but a strange cosmic collision that was already over, but part of me knew he might still be close. He was literally just on the other side of the wall. I could feel it. I stepped into the other office, handed the faxes to the receptionist, and forced a small smile like everything was normal. My chest was tight the entire time. Even standing still felt like too much. When I turned to leave, my pulse picked up again, faster and faster the closer I got to the door. I pushed it open, stepping into the hallway, and immediately sensed someone behind me, not saw, sensed. That same deep, inexplicable recognition from earlier flickered through me again. I held the door open automatically, the polite habit of someone who has worked in customer service for years. But when I looked over my shoulder, there he was. My father. He was closer than I expected, walking behind me at an unhurried pace, just following the flow of the hallway, and for a moment everything slowed. The fluorescent lights hummed above us. My breath caught. The door hinge creaked softly as I kept holding it. He met my eyes briefly, just long enough for a simple passing moment, not long enough for anything real to surface. "Thank you," he said, just 2 words. The same polite tone, the same unknowing warmth a person gives to anyone doing a small, kind gesture. I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral, though inside everything twisted. There was a strange ache, a heaviness in my chest that didn't quite feel like sadness, didn't quite feel like longing. Just impact, the impact of connection without recognition, proximity without history. He stepped through the door, continuing down the hallway without a second thought, and I stood there for a moment, hand still on the door, trying to absorb the fact that this brief exchange, this held door, this "thank you," was the only interaction we'd had in 30 years, and quite possibly the only one we ever would. The rest of the afternoon moved around me as if I were watching it through glass. People came and went, patients checked in and out, phones rang, printers whirred, every ordinary sound carrying on exactly as it always did. But I felt strangely separated from all of it, like I was half a step outside my own body. I kept doing my job on autopilot, but inside, something kept circling the same thought. I saw him. I actually saw him. Hours later, when the office finally began to quiet down, I found myself wandering to the window near the back wall. It wasn't really a conscious decision. My feet just carried me there. The sun hung low, casting a soft, golden haze over the parking lot. Cars gleamed under the fading light, engines humming faintly as people left for the day. I pressed my hand lightly against the glass, cold despite the warm light. I didn't know what car he drove, didn't know what direction he would leave in. Didn't know anything, really, not his habits, not his voice beyond the few words he said, not even whether he ever thought about me before today. My eyes scanned the parking lot anyway, irrationally searching for, I don't know, a shape, a familiar unfamiliarity, proof that the moment had been real. A man walked across the lot in the distance, all slow steps, hands tucked in pockets. My breath snagged for a second, but when he turned his head, it wasn't him. Another man got into a white truck and drove off, not him. A couple chatted as they walked to their car, not him. Still, I kept watching. There was a strange ache in the quiet of that moment, though I couldn't name it. Not sadness exactly, not longing, just weight, the weight of a story I had carried all my life brushing against reality for the first time. I thought about how close we had been earlier, only a counter between us, then a doorframe. I had looked directly into his face, he had thanked me, twice, and neither time did he have any idea who I was. Not a flicker of recognition, not a pause, nothing. As I stood there, the sun slipped a little lower, turning the light from gold to soft orange. Shadows stretched across the pavement. A few lingering cars remained, but I knew his was already gone. The moment was over. The universe had allowed our paths to cross for a handful of seconds, then pulled us apart again as quietly as it had put us together. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and stepped back from the window. My reflection hovered faintly in the glass. My face, my expression, the curiosity and tension still etched there. And for a moment I wondered if he'd ever looked out a window somewhere thinking about me. Probably not, maybe never. I turned away, the office now dim and settling into its evening silence. That was it. 30 years of distance, and all I had to show for it was a door held open, and a quiet, unknowing thank you. And somehow that tiny moment would stay with me for the rest of my life.